Hello, my soul brothers and soul sisters. I am Ron Smith, and this is the Dr. Ron Smith Investigate Show, where we separate the real from fake, the fact from fiction, and give you the winner's edge. And sometimes we're able to turn your water into wine. Today is episode number 11, and this is season number 2. And today is my special guest. I have Crystal Goins.
Yes, hi.
Crystal is an author. Crystal is a doctoral candidate. Crystal is been in the public school system for 10 years, I think 13.
13 years, yeah.
13 years, and she's a yoga instructor.
Yes.
And she's bilingual. You're a bilingual instructor?
No, not bilingual. That's a dream.
Oh, okay. So, Crystal, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm from Hampton Roads.
Okay.
I grew up in Virginia Beach. I'm from Salem area.
Mhm.
I'm from a large Filipino family. My parents were immigrants here.
Okay.
Came in here through the U.S. Navy. And I met my husband on Match.com.
Wow.
Yes. Actually, besides the kids that I have, which I have 5, ages 3 to 10,
Okay.
I even got my dogs online. My
Wow.
husband and my dogs and my schooling.
Wow, that's a show in itself, and maybe I'm gonna have to I have to bring you back in. But
Yes.
today we're going to talk about education,
Yes.
and the topic of today's show is education in the 21st century. And I think, I know we need to change the way we educate our children, and that's the reason why I'm so happy to have Crystal with us, because Crystal has started off in the public school systems, and she's doing something very unique now. And what I want to do first is tell us about your experience in the public school system.
Okay, so I have taught in 2 different states, 3 different districts, 3 different schools in grades K, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, all in Title I. It's my passion and my love. But in general, even in COVID, I do relationship-based classroom management, which is something I created on my own. And I've been doing that for over 12 years.
Wow, awesome.
Yes. And so doing that in the pandemic set me apart from other educators and other classrooms because I still was able to maintain high academic achievement, but the type of relationships where students would comply with behaviors because they trusted me.
Right.
And so having that type of environment encouraged me to write it all in a book. Because that approach was actually inspired by my Filipino family. That's how they raised us. So they told us that relationships is based on respect and responsibility,
Right.
because you're not guaranteed a voice in the space.
Right.
And in schools, public schools, large public schools, so schools as large as 700 to 900 is what I would teach in.
Wow.
The recent one was about 400 to 500.
Okay.
But in those large numbers, you have to comply for safety, just for anything to be done.
Right.
And so with that in mind, it's just, it was hard to manage without relationships, but that's why I got so far as to the doctorate and getting this far to opening up a new option.
So now your doctorate is in what?
So my doctorate is going to be in educational leadership K through 12.
Okay.
Yep. And so I am endorsed already to do K-12 supervision. And I'm endorsed in English as a second language.
Okay.
I am that SEL facilitator and that yoga instructor.
Okay.
So I am interested in serving the whole child.
Right.
So relationships kind of fostered that, being a parent of school-age kids. So 4 of my kids go to school. I send my 5th one in next year. And so it's very important that they come home to me as whole children.
Right. Now, I wanted to talk about a little bit about your past experience in the public school system.
Yes.
And then I want to transition into what you're doing now. So,
Yes.
what's the pros and cons of the public school system?
This is a really interesting question because the landscape has changed. There's before pandemic, then there's post pandemic.
Right.
So before pandemic, I mean, you're talking about decades of like traditional schooling, giving into, typical routines.
Right.
But standards were coming out and technology was being integrated slowly.
Right.
Things started changing in like 2015. Now, post-pandemic, it was just like everything changed from, curriculum to textbooks you have to do from every standard, changed multiple times, down to a list now of books that are allowed to be taught from,
Wow.
down to books that aren't allowed to be taught from, down to there's just not enough funding. There's a lot of housing development, not enough space for all the children. So lots of portables, not a lot of teachers, a lot of teacher vacancy, and teachers especially who have families or come from just teachers from diverse backgrounds.
Right.
They can't sustain the job, and so there's just a lot of issues right now happening, but all of it happened in COVID. So just as a picture, like at my classroom in Title I may have 5 different levels, 7 to 9 different levels
Wow.
of achievement that I have to manage
And
on
what's the-
top of the demands.
And what's the class sizes?
So when I was talking Title I would be like 16, 17. Post-pandemic, I mean, online at one point I was 26 in 2020. But even in the Title I schools, they're supposed to be low, it's 21. If you're a non-Title I, it's probably as big as like 28 in the elementary schools. And sometimes in the middle, you're talking about 36.
Okay. So, what effect did you saw the pandemic had on children and their learning?
Yes. So that's actually what my research is on. So my dissertation is on the impact of relationship-based classroom management on teacher self-efficacy and job satisfaction.
Okay.
So a study came out in 2023 that teachers are dissatisfied because children are like their major behavior problems, chronic absenteeism, lack of respect with parents, but also a big gap in social-emotional needs for students that teachers aren't equipped to, understand or to intervene on. And without social emotional well-being, self-regulation, emotional regulation, no learning can be done. And so it becomes a personal safety hazard.
So, was that I guess, an academic challenge, or was that a personal challenge for you?
So for me, the personal challenges was maintaining the job and the kids and everything. But that's my wheelhouse.
Okay.
So I actually changed schools 3 times, even resigned for a job to finish an internship. I was on scholarship at Regent to finish my EdS degree.
Okay.
And then I changed grade levels in the pandemic 4 times. And I maintained high academic achievement and classroom management. So for me, I was actually a trainer. So I became like an MTS building coach.
Okay.
I gave PDs and trainings to other teachers based on this. But it was my understanding that this was still very new to teachers. And on top of that, their workloads, they were already burnt out. So to receive this information and to apply it, they just didn't have much in them, in their tank, to apply it naturally.
Right. So, what led you to education? I mean, out of all the genres or careers that you could have chosen, what was special about being a teacher for you?
It was my dream. It still is my dream. So I dreamed of being a teacher since I was 5, watching the Disney Teacher Awards. And I'm the
Okay.
only one in my family. Everyone's healthcare. So God planted it in my heart.
Okay. Well, like a sidebar, my grandmother told me that I should be a teacher, and basically, I looked at what the earning potential for a teacher, and that that turned me the other way. But believe it or not, in my own way, that's the reason why I have the podcast, because I'm teaching financial literacy. How do you think the learning affect people, especially in the early stages of education, affect them lifetime?
Frederick Douglass says you build strong children because it's hard to repair broken men. So developmentally, the learning potential caps out at like age 8, and then it gets harder. So to invest in our younger generation is to invest in, our future generation as well.
Right.
So younger the better.
Now, I believe parents are the first teachers.
Yeah.
And what motivation should parents look for when they look for for a school or look for in an instructor or a teacher?
Well, they have to acknowledge that the times have changed. So social motivation is key. So when you're looking in a school environment, it's just not their amenities or their programs. You're really looking for the pro-social environment that's going to build the character of your child.
Right.
If you can't find that pro-social environment, you need to head the other way.
So what are some of the challenges in a public school system that negates that? Is it enough time, or is it because I saw where from 10 to 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. is a prime time for children to learn, and then from 2 to 5, that's I don't know where I read that from, but it seems like there are some power hours that that enable children to learn, and it's totally opposite of what we are doing in the public school system.
Well, you have to understand that public school runs like a business. It's, by, tax dollars, and so government funding. And so from transportation all the way to meals, it's all. So kids, to make it to school, have to wake up and go to their bus stop at like 6 a.m.
Right.
And then to have enough bus drivers for, elementary, middle, and high school, they all have to start at different times. That's a strain on the families,
Right.
And so, but it's all a lot of decisions have to be made based on the business and the funding. That's what you have to understand. To serve thousands and populations and communities, you have to have funding. So some of those decisions are made based on the funding versus the student needs.
Now, one of the things that I did a little research a long time ago, John D. Rockefeller, back in the turn of the century, actually the 1900s, he intervened in this education system to train us, because I'm a public school graduate, for work, for military, and to be good citizens.
Yes.
Now, with the changing of from the Industrial Revolution to technology, do you still think that's a viable way, the way we train our kids?
Yes. Well, it's moving in that direction. So research is pivoting. That's why all the changes are happening. Personally, my kids are in the midst. Change usually happens within 10 years. So my kids don't have 10 years. By the time the change actually gets implemented, on the state and government level, my kids will, they'll miss the mark.
Right.
So, but they're heading in that direction again. So if you want to be part of the change, it's time to join in.
Okay. So we have Crystal Gaines here. We're talking about education, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Crystal's transitioning to what she's doing now, and the improvising and the innovations that she is doing in the education system. So after the break, we're going to return. Hello, my soul brothers and soul sisters. Follow my show on YouTube channel, SKST Radio Network Podcast. Like, share, and subscribe. And we have Crystal Gaines here. And basically, we're talking about education, moving from what we call education. And I know everyone has their opinion. Everybody understands the challenges. And she has a solution to some of the things that we are talked about in the first 15 minutes of the show. And in order for us to really, we always say that kids are our future, and then kids are so important. But at the same time, look at what our tax dollars are doing. So Crystal has a solution to some of those things. And I want to talk about some of the things that you're doing innovation-wise in education.
Yes. So I have joined the network, KaiPod Learning. So I'm part of their Catalyst program. And KaiPod is a network of micro schools. So for me, you can operate a micro school as a learning center or a private school. I choose to operate it as a learning center as an option 3 homeschool option for students and families. So I homeschool my one son, and I send 3 kids to private school and 1 to an in-home daycare. And I have sent my kids to Montessori, private, public, all within a span of 4 years. So, in my opinion, homeschool is the best option for freedom and personalization. So, I am opening Heartwise Scholars, a micro school that is relationship based. It's a homegrown learning community for pre K through 8th grade students to thrive socially, emotionally, and academically. So, we instill lifelong learning habits, critical thinking, and academic goal setting that empowers students to be themselves while working towards their future.
Well, you kind of answer. I had this little anecdote. Basically, if I was going to a new city, somebody could give me a map and tell me this is where the location you need to go,
Yeah.
or they can point it out to me that, hey, take a left at the light and go down to
Yeah.
the building on the end, or they can actually say follow me, and they actually take me to the location.
Mhm.
That's what I see that especially when young children are trying to learn, is that they learn not only connectedly, visually, basically, but if you can actually show them, tell them, and actually get them involved in it.
Yeah,
And it sounds like that's what you're doing.
I am. In my learning centers at KaiPod, we're allowed to make our learning center basically our dream school the way we want,
Okay.
to cater to our community. And for me as a parent and a 21st century student, the last 4 years, and a teacher, what I've seen is that our kids are always behind a screen and not out in the real world. Well, there are not a lot of spaces that afford that. Even educational options have little green space. And so that's why I want a home-based option where we can have indoor and outdoor settings so that we can have more learning opportunities.
In your experience, what model did you see more children gravitate to and be more successful?
Well, that's the thing. Post-pandemic, I've taught kids virtually and I've taught kids in person. And what I see is they're a mix of both.
Okay.
My introvert kids love virtual. They find their confidence in seeing themselves on the screen. They find a sense of intimacy being with them. So offering that virtual option where they're on camera, where they see pictures, where they're posting of themselves in front of a community is very special to them. But in person, kids value attention. They value a voice.
Right.
They want to be seen.
Yes.
So some kids want the in-person option, that community feel, that social environment where they feel like they're part of a group, but they're authentically going to be themselves.
Does class size matters, and does the instructional staff matters to children?
That's why, yes, it does. Because as a parent, I can tell which teachers invested into my child holistically and which teachers were there and tried. But the quality of teachers, it's, they have to be invested in relationships first. And when you're doing that, you know those kids and you target needs. You can't love that kid without hitting their needs. And so I need that teacher that's naturally going to go there.
How? What's the best parental involvement that been to your experience? Could you give us an example of what would be ideal parental involvement?
So the ideal is someone who would just partner with the teacher in terms that education is important. Now, me and my husband both, he works at the hospital, 12-hour shifts, 20 shifts a month. And I worked multiple jobs to afford the private school.
Okay.
So I haven't always been physically available, but that teacher just has to tell me, and I am a partner through and through. So in Title I, I find the same thing. As long as the parent is there to, encourage education, we can be partners. But it's when they're not and we're sending a different message, that's when it gets hard.
So what is I guess, the disconnect in communications that you have seen, and I'm going back to the public school system, that you have seen that if you could have changed things, you would have done?
Well, in terms of parents, that's one thing I would have changed. Parents have the perception without education, we're just a daycare. So when we're just a daycare, the focus isn't learning, it's over, whether their personal needs are being met or, they're physically safe.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't get into the profession as teachers to be a daycare.
Right.
If we wanted to be a daycare teacher, we wouldn't have gone to school. And so it was just one of those things where we don't feel valued and appreciated.
Okay, and I might touch on be a little touchy subject. But why is the system, as I see it, and I won't put words in your mouth, outdated?
Again, it's a large business that, it runs with many different communities, and the schools they're not all equitable. So the needs of one school in the same district are completely different for a school right down the street. And because of that, to find solutions that meet all school needs is nearly one big. And so we need community partners. And so even though my option is not a public school option, but if I serve, an intimate group of students and families, who eventually want to go back to the public school or go into the community with other people who are from public school, we're all winning.
So what do your school advantages for going to your school? I want you to brag a little bit.
Yeah. So my school, it is small. So there's only 36 kids total. There will be 3 pods. The pre-K 3-4 pod is Montessori based. So I have a Montessori trained teacher who actually was my kid's Montessori teacher. And she will teach them everything about grace, courtesy, and curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
She'll set the stage for SEL, for social emotional learning. She will just get them enticed into learning. K2 is my next pod. I have a very seasoned teacher who's coming in, and she will do a mix of hybrid technology and personalized learning, but in-person experiences with hands-on experiences. And that is my foundations. My 3-5 is mastery methods. That's when we take the foundational learnings and we put it into practice for real world experiences. And then my last cohort are middle schoolers. They're going to be online learners, actually in the public school.
Okay.
I'm going to be their instructional coach to teach them work management and enrichment and entrepreneurship. But the
awesome.
Enrichment will be interest-based. By then, they want to express themselves. So content creating, whether they got a good or service they want to explore, I'm going to allow them to explore that in a safe environment.
I know STEM has been overused, and how do you integrate that with what you're doing?
So for me, my master's is in curriculum instruction. And so STEM is an integrated method: science, technology, engineering, and math. I feel that way with everything. So that's why I want the indoor-outdoor space, because that lends to more STEM learning, even STEAM learning, because art can be integrated into that. So I believe, literacy and math can be integrated into science and social studies, and that will be an everyday thing.
We got a couple of minutes, but I want people to know how they can get in contact with you.
Okay, so I'm Crystal Goins. You can find me on Facebook. I'm also the Resilient Teacher Mom. That's my branding. So you can find me at www.theresilientteachermom.com. You can find Heartwise Scholars Microschool as my Facebook group. Please join. And then you can contact me at crystal@theresilientteachermom.com.
All right. Now, you're a mother of 5.
Uh-huh.
What gets your kids excited about education at school?
They love learning. Me and their dad are lifelong. We are so different, but that's the one thing that we really, have in common is we're lifelong learners. So my kids love to ask questions. They're curious about everything. They love the community feel when other people are excited to learn with them.
Awesome. So, some of the things I know. What grades are they in? Because I was going to ask what.
So Reagan's in 4th, Reggie's in 3rd, Wyatt is in first grade, Jude is in pre-K 4, and Miles will be pre-K 3 next year.
Have they shared with you what they like to do as far as a career and profession or a field of study?
It's 2024. They got multiple options. So, Reggie says he wants to be a chemist and a dad. And Reagan wants to be a baker, own a business. They both talk about photography, cooking. So they want hobbies, but they want a career. They want the flexibility of having multiple skills.
The reason I asked because one of my pet peeves about the public school system, they want you to have a certain amount of knowledge, but they don't inspire imagination. That's the reason why I asked you that question, because it appears that basically you have a balance that you allow your kids to, have that imagination of the different things that's out there and available.
Well, there are other teachers. It's teacher-based. So I was trained to always start with hopes and dreams. Through hopes and dreams, you can take education wherever you need it to go. So we always start the year with hopes and dreams.
Also, I found this quote from Albert Einstein. It said, "Education is not a learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think." And that's one reason why I asked Crystal to come just to talk about some alternatives. And everybody has a complaint about the public school system, but Crystal is actually doing something about that for the generation to come. So, Crystal, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Ron.
You've been amazing. And if you let them know how they can contact you again before we go on.
So the best way is you email me at crystal@theresilientteachermom.com. You can find me at www.theresilientteachermom.com and on Facebook for Heartwise Scholars Microschool.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time I have. My time is up, and I thank you for yours. Until next time.